with sleep comes dreams. What mischief can be found in this subaquatic somnambulant realm?
Nighttime. A quiet period of time where the sun has set, noise from our daily and busy lives are finally gone, and people and animals alike are bundled up at their home, already tucked in and fast asleep. But although this sounds like the perfect sleeping environment, falling asleep can feel impossible sometimes when your mind feels like a game of Peggle. But don't worry, I have a solution for that. Let's try to calm our minds and focus on the bigger things in life, like SpongeBob merchandise. When it comes to merchandise, I think it's largely underappreciated. Owning something from the thing you love is a thrilling experience, and thankfully, there is no end to the amount of SpongeBob merch there is. Like for example, the SpongeBob TV, the SpongeBob chair, SpongeBob Legos, and of course, SpongeBob cologne. But out of those mountains of merchandise, can you guess which one's the most popular? If your guess was the SpongeBob popsicle with gumball eyes, you'll be right. Have you ever had one of these? They're a delight. Even though the popsicle inside looks nothing like the one on the packaging, you learn to love his inbred little face. And I'm not even a big popsicle guy, but on a warm summer night, I can definitely still appreciate the small but similar likeness to SpongeBob. A little fun fact about the SpongeBob popsicle is that it's been around since forever, 2002, and it's the only SpongeBob themed food I've seen people talk about. It got so popular at one point, it even got its own merchandise of itself. But what about the other SpongeBob foods? Don't they deserve their own merchandise? Like the classic SpongeBob Kraft Mac and Cheese, the SpongeBob Kid Cuisine, SpongeBob Gummies, SpongeBob Pez dispensers, finally the classic SpongeBob Go-Gurts. Or maybe you're into the underground SpongeBob foods, like the SpongeBob Cream of Wheat. Yeah, you heard me right. Cream of wheat.
I am so excited, I think I'm gonna explode!
Get excited every morning with new SpongeBob SquarePants Cream of Wheat Chocolate Lagoon and Bikini Bottom Maple Brown Sugar. Part of a nutritious breakfast, high in iron, calcium, and vitamin D. Kids love it all the way to the bottom.
Yeah, not my favorite either. So maybe you'd like SpongeBob green beans and butter sauce. Or maybe you'd like SpongeBob baby carrots. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, a lot of the food companies just kind of slapped on the same 3 SpongeBob faces on the product and called it a day, which is probably the main reason why most of these foods fell off from the food aisles. Since what literate kid wants to eat SpongeBob cream of wheat, or even SpongeBob butter beans? They aren't even shaped like SpongeBob. And here, since there are so many SpongeBob foods I didn't mention, let's do a quick ranking of them to show them some recognition. At the top, we have delicious. Next, we have good. And so on and so forth till we get to the bottom. I do want to explain this picture of a burger I put here though. This is the Wendy's Krabby Patty, a collab they did back in 2023. And obviously it's not that bad, but when I found out Wendy's was going to make an official Krabby Patty meal, I was obviously excited, because what kid didn't want to eat a Krabby Patty? So when the day came and I got my hands on it, I thought I was going to feel like Squidward eating his first Krabby Patty. But what followed was just pure disappointment. I know realistically, it wasn't going to be the best burger I ever had, but it was a below average burger, and the fries that came with it were plain. Either the meal was just that bad, or the teenager who made my meal really screwed up. I know this wouldn't have happened if it was made by SpongeBob though. It would have been the best burger I've ever had in my life. Spit it out and taste it again type of burger, but sadly the Wendy's one was definitely not that. And the cherry on top of all that disappointment was that it didn't even come with a toy. There have been many fast food places that's made toys of SpongeBob already, so I don't see why Wendy's didn't go all out here. So it deserved this tier, not because the food was, the food was that bad, but just because my disappointment. And since I've been a SpongeBob fan ever since I can remember, ever since I can say that 5 times fast, all thanks to my parents allowing me to watch it, because if you didn't know back then, many parents actually banned SpongeBob from ever being watched, either because the show is too annoying, or believe the online articles about how SpongeBob did irreversible damage to kids' brains, which was this whole big thing, with even some articles saying SpongeBob was trying to push their gay agenda, which was all just a big lie. Again, if you were one of these kids who couldn't watch SpongeBob, you were missing out on some peak television. I would wake up an hour early before elementary school just to watch it before school. And when I had a hard time going to bed, I would watch it to fall asleep. Because we had conveniently had SpongeBob on DVD that we got from maybe a red box and forgot to return it or something. But besides that, after 1 or 2 episodes, I would slowly drift to bed. A truly blissful experience. I've told my friends about this technique and they told me it was quote unquote weird because they thought SpongeBob was loud and because his laugh sounds like this. But that didn't matter for me. SpongeBob's aquatic vibe and tropical music was my cup of tea for going to bed. And I especially felt that way about season 1 of SpongeBob when they still use cell animation. If you don't know what I mean when I say cell animation, have you ever noticed sometimes the SpongeBob episodes looked a little different? This was because in season 1 of SpongeBob, instead of everything being digitally drawn like newer episodes, they would hand paint the backgrounds and then hand paint the characters moving on a translucent sheet. The translucent sheet would be placed on top of the backgrounds to make the SpongeBob animation. But after season 1 of SpongeBob, technology for art got way more advanced, so the SpongeBob staff swapped to digitally drawing SpongeBob, which is a way more faster process and way more efficient and blah 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 blah. Me personally, I wish they stuck with the cell animation. Even though the close-ups and backgrounds are still traditionally hand-painted, the characters sometimes look a little out of place in the hand-painted backgrounds. And again, me personally, the first season just looks so more charming and comfy, if you can call a painting comfy. But yeah, if I were to live in SpongeBob, yeah, it would be comfy. I actually have an ongoing list of some comfy places I would live in. Of course, we have SpongeBob's library, mattress stores, the Adventure Time treehouse, the pillow fort in Adventure Time's treehouse, and yeah, those are a couple I could think of off the top of my head. Another fun fact about the cell animation is that you can actually buy some of the real SpongeBob frames. The ones used in the actual SpongeBob episodes aired in season 1. Here, let's take a look at some of the frames from my favorite episodes, starting with my all-time favorite episode, Rock Bottom. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick board a bus in order to get home from Glove World, a glove-themed music park that they love. SpongeBob accidentally gets on the wrong bus and heads down to Rock Bottom, where things are very different from Bikini Bottom. These frames vary from $500 to $1,500, and I will definitely be getting one in the future since this is my all-time favorite episode. In SB-129, Squidward tries to flee from SpongeBob and Patrick's antics, and accidentally ends up frozen in the Krusty Krab freezer for 2,000 years. When he thaws out, he's in the future, and now SpongeBob is even more annoying. So seeing this, Squidward steals a time machine to get away from SpongeBob. Sadly, these frames are harder to find, so I couldn't find an accurate price range for them. It's very common to see this problem when it comes to SpongeBob panels, since a lot of people aren't willing to sell them, and an abundance of the frames are fake. So if you're like me and you want to buy a frame for yourself, make sure you do your research and don't just buy one off eBay all willy-nilly. Lastly, these frames are from Help Wanted, the first ever episode of SpongeBob, and let me talk about the elephant in the room. The frames for this episode go for a whopping $15,000. And yeah, it's pretty expensive, but I mean, it being the pilot episode that would determine the future of the show would mark up the price a lot. And come on, this is the first time we're introduced to the small city of Bikini Bottom, where our spongy yellow friend SpongeBob is getting ready for the biggest day in his life. Today is the day SpongeBob will apply to work at the finest dining establishment in all of Bikini Bottom, the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob, before even applying, almost talks himself out of it, but thankfully his old pal Patrick was there and reassures him that he can still do it. A little side note here is I really like how all the characters in the earlier seasons acted. They acted a lot more relatable and less exaggerated. Like for example Patrick in this scene. Even though he's still clearly really dumb, he still tries his best to understand the situation and tries to cheer up SpongeBob here, which comes off less annoyingly dumb and more charming. Kinda like how Cosmo was from Fairly Odd Parents. Now back to the show. Squidward Tentacles, SpongeBob's grumpy neighbor, not wanting SpongeBob to apply to the job he works at, plans to sabotage his dream and talks to Mr. Krab to not hire this yellow goofball. Mr. Krab agrees and tells SpongeBob that if he wants to be hired here, he has to go grab a hydrodynamic spatula with port and starboard attachments and turbo drive. SpongeBob, overjoyed with this opportunity, eagerly leaves to search out for this made-up item, while Squidward and Mr. Krabs laugh at SpongeBob's naiveness. After SpongeBob leaves, a sea of hungry anchovies flood the Krusty Krab and overrun the place. All hope seems lost until SpongeBob arrives back at the Krusty Krab, and with his new hydrodynamic spatula with port and starboard attachments, with don't forget the turbo, uses his fry cook skills to satisfy the hungry crowd of anchovies in one of the coolest montages I've ever seen. And with that, SpongeBob has saved the Krusty Krab and is awarded with the title and position of Honorary Fry Cook. This was a fantastic pilot, and it's the push they needed for funding for many seasons yet to come. So yes, I guess the price is kinda justified, but still I wouldn't buy it. The pilot was great, and I don't think they could have done any better showing off the potential for the show. And I'm glad Stephen Hillenburg nailed it with the design and personality for all the characters. Because this was the first ever design for SpongeBob. When this was first drawn, Stephen Hillenburg at the time was a teacher teaching marine biology at the Orange County Marine Institute. He would go on and create an informative comic book named The Intertidal Zone, teaching kids about marine life. And in this comic book, there is a sponge-like creature. Not technically SpongeBob, but technically it's Stephen Hillenburg's first drawing of a sponge character. Later on, he would pursue his passion for making art and enroll in the California Institute of Arts in 1989. And after graduating, he would work as an animator on Nickelodeon for Rocko's Modern Life. Then after the end of Rocko's Modern Life, Stephen would work on his own series based on the sea, using the Intertidal Zone comic book as some early concept design inspiration. A little later on, the beloved cast of members SpongeBob, Patrick, Squidward, Mr. Krabs, Plankton, and Sandy Cheeks would be created. And here are some of the main cast concept designs and early background art. I'll leave them hanging here for a little longer if you want to read them. SpongeBob was named SpongeBoy, and Mr. Krabs was still Mr. Krabs, but spelled with a C instead of a K. Even though they were named differently, they still had the characteristics on point, and SpongeBoy isn't that bad of a name. It could have been a lot worse. Like, SpongeBob. Every day I live my life, glad knowing SpongeBob is not named SpongeBob. Because one, that's gross. And two, if SpongeBob was named SpongeBob, I don't think SpongeBob would have gotten as popular. And I'm very glad he is popular. Because it's a joy to see him outside of television. Like video games, announces for the NFL, and SpongeBob's house as a resort. I always wanted to go here as a kid. I'm also very grateful for you guys listening to me. This is my first actual video, so I was a little nervous when making this, so any feedback would be appreciated. But anyway, sadly our time here has to be cut short. So if you're still awake or ready to sleep, I just want to say I hope you have a good night, and I'll see you later.